everyone. We'll get started in just a minute, but welcome to our session, Pathways for Homeownership. Okay, so just a few housekeeping items before we get started. If you're new to Zoom, you should see the control panel at the bottom of your screen there, and there you'll be able to unmute yourself, turn your video on and off, and use the chat feature. We really encourage you to share your thoughts, ask questions as we go along. You can either use the chat feature to put your questions in or kind of share some of your thoughts that you want to bring up, or if you go to click on participants in your control panel, you should see the option to raise your hand, and that will notify us that you would like to speak, and then you can unmute and speak, but whatever you're more comfortable, chat or raising the hand. And then just a last thing, we will this will be recorded and we'll post it on the Housing Toolbox website. So if you miss it or can't stay for the whole thing, you will be able to review it there. And we're also going to get the presentations from Isabel and Brendan, our facilitators today, so we can share those as well after. I think that is all, and I will hand it over to my colleague, Katie Lacey, who will kick us off and we'll get started. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Katie Lacey, Senior Planner here at Mass Housing Partnership. Just a quick introduction to MHP. I don't know, Katie, if you could click the page because I don't have it. We're a quasi-public agency created in 1985, and our main goal is to create the supply of affordable housing. And to that end, we work with municipalities on new and better ways to meet our housing needs. So I just wanted to say we're really excited about today's session. I don't know if you are all familiar with the Rural Policy Plan, but one of the major issues it identified was, troubling declines in population in the western part of the state, and sort of the associated impacts on the economy, on schools, on municipal budgets, et cetera. So one of the specific goals of the plan was to create opportunities for new and underrepresented groups to come to the region. And one of those ways was through first-time home ownership. There's an affordable housing crisis in the state. Housing is a bit less expensive in the western part of the state. So to that end, we wanted to have a specific session on pathways to home ownership. So I wanted to just introduce our two speakers today, Brendan Bailey, who's the CEO for the Realtor Association of the Pioneer Valley, which is Hampton, Hampshire, and Franklin County, and our own Isabel Cruz, who's a project manager with MHP's One Mortgage program, which provides loans for income-eligible first-time home buyers and is the pride and joy of MHP. So with that, I guess we're starting with Isabel first.
Great, thank you both. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all. So again, as Katie said, my name is Isabel. I work on the homeownership team at MHP, and I just kind of wanted to start us off kind of why we're doing this session. And so let's see. So I know as Massachusetts, we're used to kind of being on top list of education, healthcare, but a list that not so proud to be on is that we have the 6th largest disparity in homeownership rates in the nation. And so I kind of broke it down by county. I know this is Western Mass, I included Worcester County in there too, but as you can see, white households have almost double the rate of homeownership than households of color do. And so just kind of wanted to explore that and opportunities that may be available, and just kind of challenges to homeownership. So over half of renters identify saving for a down payment as the primary barrier to homeownership. 50% of renters in Massachusetts are cost burdened, and 25% spend more than half of their income on their rent. And this is a little dated, but in 2017, the median household income for renters was just over $40,000, and the median home sale price was $347,000. So home prices are rising, whereas income levels are staying the same. And so just seeing, excuse me 1 second. So stagnant wages over the last 2 decades, but combined with a strong labor market means that many families do have the ability to pay for a mortgage. They're paying 25% more of their income on rent, but they lack the resources to save for a down payment, which is the primary barrier to homeownership. So just want to share that 33 cities and towns and community organizations offer down payment assistance programs throughout the state. You can see a lot of it is focused in Eastern Massachusetts, but there is strong representation in the Pioneer Valley area. And there are some statewide down payment assistance programs. The Federal Home Loan Bank of Boston, they have the Equity Builder program and the Housing Our Workforce program. And then our sister organization, Mass Housing, they also have a 15-year fixed rate down payment loan that can help support people in becoming homeowners. But now I'd like to just transition over to Brendan, who will kind of just give us an idea of what's going on in the Pioneer Valley area.
Good morning, everybody. So can we all see my presentation? Yeah, it's just kind of different on my side. Oh, we can't. You need me to share my screen again, or?
Yes, please.
Okay. Here, and we want this, and share. Okay, are we up and running now?
All set, yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys very much for having me. And again, my name is Brendan Bailey. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for the Realtor Association of Pioneer Valley. And as Katie mentioned earlier, that our association covers Hampden, Hampshire, and Franklin County. One kind of disclosure thing I do want to make sure it's clear is, number one, I am not a realtor. I am a regular old Joe who's just in charge of running the association. However, all of our members are realtors. And there's one important thing to note is whenever I'm speaking for realtors only. So if you go and get your license, you're just a regular old licensee. The moment you become a member of a local, state, national realtor association, then you are able to use that trademark term of realtor. So just want to make that clear. I know that term realtor gets thrown around a lot, like saying, you know, Kleenex or whatever. It can be any type of brand, but you mean the same type of thing. So I'm just speaking specifically about what realtors are experiencing and seeing out in the field. And I am originally from Durham, North Carolina. So my friend in his Carolina sweatshirt or t-shirt, I can see on there, I'm going to have to ask you to leave, sir. It's nice that you're here, but not with that Carolina stuff on. And he's laughing. A little Duke Carolina rivalry thing. So anyway, first off, I want to get into, okay, there we go. Housing demand. This is one of the things that we started to touch on a second ago from Isabel, and inventory or lack thereof. It is obviously one of the things that's not just facing this area or the Commonwealth, but across the country. Everyone is dealing with a lack of inventory. And, you know, every month we put out statistics that come from the MLS, which is MLS PIN, Property Information Network. The association did used to have ownership of a local MLS, but that went away a number of years ago and is now pretty much a statewide MLS. The Berkshires have their own, as well as Cape Cod and the islands. Everyone else falls under MLS PIN. So we put out stats, and really, I think the last one that came out fits this perfectly. If you look, it says Pioneer Valley sales down 6%, median price up 8%, 8.5%. Well, that kind of makes sense, right? There's no housing that's available, or not no, but there's not as much as there has been in years past. I mean, for a healthy supply, you want to have about 5 months of housing stock. We're below 2 in the Pioneer Valley, which makes things interesting. You know, there's not a lot of housing that's out there. So when you compare year over year, the number of sales is down because there's just frankly not as much. However, the median price is going up. You know, my members are seeing it be very, very commonplace for, you know, asking price is almost kind of like, that's sort of nice, but let's go above that. You know, the days of haggling down a price in this area and kind of just housing in general is going the way of extinction a little bit. And, you know, it's commonplace to see offers, 20 offers on a home, which again, that makes getting into home ownership really difficult sometimes, where you're dealing with so many people fighting for what is available out there, which isn't much. And that makes the prices go up and up and up. And unfortunately, that can eventually, you know, price individuals out of properties. So we'll talk about it a little bit more, but there's looking at different ways of housing. We start talking about things like ADUs, accessory dwelling units. We've been working with a lot of municipalities across the Pioneer Valley on, you know, zoning regulations and things like that, that make that type of thing a possibility to do. You know, we want people to be able to use their properties in ways that not just make sense for them, but are also good for growth of the city or town. You know, one really good example is if you're in an area that has an older population. Well, everyone really likes to what's called age in place. So if you're going to have, you know, grandma and grandpa has their house and they're getting too old to take care of it, well, it's nice to be able to have that accessory dwelling unit, that granny flat, that above garage apartment, where you can have a loved one move into there, and then someone, a family member or whoever is looking for a house, is able to buy the house. And it's a really good way for families to stay together, but also provide additional housing for people, because if there's nowhere to go, people aren't going to leave their houses. So you know, we have to get creative with a lot of the stuff that we're trying to do with that. So that's kind of the landscape. There's not a ton of housing. There's tons and tons of people out there. And then we had our good friend, COVID-19 come into play. And, you know, this is just kind of a example of business as usual, not so much. I mean, with all the social distancing and safety guidelines that have to be put into place, it is having our members be really, really creative about what they're doing when they're showing houses and helping people get into homes and things they have to think about. And again, gosh, it's hard enough to get off of work to go see, you know, a house if that's possible, but now you've got to fight with 20 people to do it, and you have all these other regulations that you have to worry about. You know, who's entering the home, where you've been, you know, if people are worried about contact tracing, all that kind of stuff, which makes it a really, really unique experience. You know, we continue to see the market remain busy though. People are ready to get out of their house and to go be involved. There have been enough practices that have been put in place, virtual showings, things like that, that people have a lot more access to homes in a way that they never had before, which is fantastic. However, again, now you just have more people that are involved in the home buying and selling process. So there's been a lot of negative things that have come from COVID, but some really good things that have made at least our members, which I have contact with, get creative about how they're presenting properties and hitting a wider range of their audience.
Brendan, this
yes.
is Katie. I'm going to cut in real quick because there's an interesting conversation in the chat that I think
please, yeah,
may want to refer to, which is, you know, clearly inventory is limited and bidding wars are happening in places like Amherst and Northampton, but what is going on in the more rural, smaller town areas in your
It's
region?
no, it's not necessarily just the densely populated places. It is expanding out into the rural sections. And, you know, especially when you take, like, let's have a town like Greenfield, something like that, where again, there is not a ton of housing up that way. There's still people out there that are wanting houses. And in particular, you know, now where there's starting to see more activity of people trying to get away from city centers a little bit. There hasn't been a ton of that as of yet, but we are seeing it. And in kind of dovetails with that is land. We are seeing a lot of land being sold than we have in the past. People that want to just have that space kind of almost in case, or they're interested in building a house. But even with the rural areas, you are seeing, you know, if you had maybe 1 to 2 offers on a house, now you might have 7 or 8 offers on a house in a rural area. So, and again, it's all, no one really tracks that. It's all very anecdotal from my members that I've spoken with, but that's the feedback that I've gotten. Are there any other questions or? No? Okay. So then the next part that we're really looking at is sort of future outlook. And this comes into a lot of study and analysis for what's going on. And it really breaks into 2 things of affordable housing versus housing affordability. And I think those are really critical terms, because housing affordability versus affordable housing, they say 2 very, very different things. Affordable housing, when anyone uses that term, unfortunately, it gets put into negative connotations, which, right, wrong, or indifferent, unfortunately, that's where a lot of people's heads go, which is not right in my personal opinion. What we really need to be speaking about in the way that we want to phrase stuff, especially when we're working with municipalities and, you know, other civic groups, is to look at housing affordability. What are the intrinsic causes that are within our communities that cause housing to be affordable versus not? I mean, especially, gosh, in our 3 counties, there's 68 towns and cities. Each one is slightly different. You know, what's going to be right in Springfield is not going to be the same as Westfield, is not going to be the same as Southampton. It all has a slight variation difference. So that's why it's really critical for organizations like ourselves, like Mass Housing and everyone involved to really start to look at those and figure out what are those underlying causes, and start to look at the data. And really that's something that's in the process of being done at Current. We have been part of a group that was spearheaded, the Realtor Association, part of a group that was spearheaded by the Wayfinders group, and it's working with the Donahue Institute, actually. So they have their arm out in Amherst, but then they also have their main office in Boston, and they're doing a significant study that is looking at what's kind of dubbed the Springfield metro area, but that's kind of growing as time goes as to really what is the metro area. And again, that brings in what is affordable. How far do I have to go for my drive? Well, this kind of got more affordable when I bring in some of these life factors, not necessarily just the economic factors as well. So that's a really interesting study that's in the process of being put together, looking at a lot of data. And so keep your eyes out for that. I think by next spring, COVID may have kind of pushed us back a little bit, but I think by next spring is when that first draft of that study should be coming out from the Donahue Institute, from their housing division. So keep eyes out for that. But, you know, having the tools be put in front of home buyers, and, you know, that access to home ownership is the number one thing that's super important. And one of the things that Katie asked me beforehand was, you know, what is that kind of process? How do you what are people figuring out? You know, can I rent? Can I buy? How does he go through that process? And what are your members, the practitioners, seeing? And for my members, this is the best time that it's really important to work with somebody, somebody that is a realtor, that is an expert in this. And, one of our affiliate partners with our association is a Mass Housing, and we always do a seminar for our members to be able to bring, we do it a couple of times a year, of all the housing programs that are available, and first-time homebuyer programs, all those kinds of things that will help their clients be able to get into their housing of choice, which is really fantastic. And that's where our best role and the role of our members is to bring those tools directly to the home buyer and seller, for that matter, depending on what they're trying to do. So it's very much a partnership. And, we also have a large amount of partnership with the local lenders as well as attorneys, which provide us with a ton of fabulous resources that we then send out to our members of different programs and, what's changing with different lending opportunities and things like that. And especially now with rates being as low as they are, it's a very good time to be doing that and engaging in the home buying process. And, the more that we can provide our members with this information, the more that they can start to help people go through that and look at what is truly affordable, not just in their pocket, in their pocket, but also there's that affordability and kind of like life worth to some degree of, I can live somewhere, but it's going to be a little bit out of my budget, but I'm also not going to have to drive an hour and a half. And you see that a lot with people that live in Boston, and why there's more and more people moving out. There's all the talk of transit and, have that go out. However, someone that used to live in DC, you put the transit line out there, and now the places that weren't expensive now are really expensive because the transit line's there. So it kind of has that push and pull effect a little bit with some of these things. And, just to kind of get back with it's looking at those intrinsic causes of what is making something affordable. Again, this is where the conversations with the individual municipalities are super important. Looking at master plans and zoning laws and things like that, and trying to be as open to growth potentials and looking at all the different types of housing that we can potentially be going for. One thing that's becoming more popular in this area is mixed use. When you look at places like Holyoke, what they're doing with their mill areas, and specifically what East Hampton is doing with their mill areas, and Amherst has done some for a while, that is one of the best things that I personally think that cities and towns can do, is look at that mixed use. How are we going to bring people into an area, have housing that's also affordable, but that's also desirable? And it really has to be that partnership between everyone, to be completely honest, to make this stuff work. So that's kind of in sum total what I've experienced with my members, what they're seeing out in the field. And I'd love to take any further questions that anybody has about, experiences or, just sort of outlook questions. Anything anybody has would be great. And I can't see the chat, so I don't know if there's anything going on. I can just see my
I have
screen.
a quick question.
Please.
Yeah, as usual. I wasn't aware that the association has an active relationship with municipalities, and I'm curious how that works. Who do you speak with in municipalities, and how effective do you think your messaging has been, given that there's been such resistance generally on the municipal level to opening things up to more different kinds of housing?
Sure. It's a very good question. And so who does the interaction at the association? Me. I serve as a CEO, but then also basically as our government affairs director. So what we do is we make sure that we are keeping up to date on all of the, there's a program that comes from our state association that is really nice, that basically scans all of the committee meeting minutes and public documents from all of the municipalities within our association's jurisdiction. And it basically hits for keywords, things like that. So that's one of the things that we do, is we keep an eye on those keywords. And when, whatever they are, something crops up, let's say it's ADUs, it's going to be on the next agenda that's coming up. What we do is we make sure that we are part of that meeting. We talk with the individuals that are maybe sponsoring that legislation, say, hey, do you have any questions about this? Or if we see some things that really don't look that great or are not great for growth, or, you know, just kind of our opinion, we set up a time to talk to them. And we have members as well as myself that are actively involved in doing so. And, you know, it has to start with that communication and that partnership, which has grown a lot in my year and a half in particular of being here. You know, we have a program with the association called our Town Monitor program, which is really nice. Our members that live in the various municipalities, they keep an eye on, you know, what's going on, and they attend the, you know, government meetings, the city council meetings, things like that, and help develop that relationship so we can continue to have that partnership between, you know, the realtors and working with the elected officials as to how we can help and how we can help promote growth and housing affordability and things like that. You know, it's really like any association, it's keeping up those relationships. I spend a lot of time on the phone, making phone calls and making sure that we keep, you know, we're friendly with our mayors and in any way that we can be a help, things like that. And also being part of, you know, presentations like this where we can reach a large audience, and, you know, you never know the power of where it might spread. Somebody's on here, say, hey, I was speaking with or listening to a presentation from the CEO of the Realtor Association. He was talking about growth, and I know you're on city council and you were talking about that. Have you spoken to him about that? No, I didn't know. Okay, there we go. And now the conversation goes from there, which is really great. The last thing.
We have had a few questions. I just want to keep it.
Oh, sure.
One is, and I think we can do these sort of together.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the lack of inventory will continue? And then another related question that we're all interested in, which is, are you seeing second-time home buyers having, you know, grabbing things that, you know, sort of soaking up the market?
Not necessarily. So number one, do I expect it to continue? I mean, to be honest, yes, that's a crystal ball question. And even the chief economist for our national association, who has more degrees than letters in his name, I don't think he even knows the answer to that. You know, it is one of those things that is really, really tough. And it's especially difficult here in the Commonwealth because it's all ruled by individual municipalities. There's land out there, but there's not a ton of usable land in a lot of sections. And each municipality has their own rules and regulations. So it makes it difficult to have widespread change happen. In the immediate future, I don't think there's going to be a big swath of change. However, it is something that I think would be good to see continue to grow in the future, of course. You know, coming from North Carolina, one of the first things I did when I got here with my board and my government affairs committee, I said, oh, okay, let's get involved with the county commissioners. Because in North Carolina, that was the people you want to talk to. If your county rule is big time, you know, that's a whole swath of cities and towns that fall under the county. And everyone looked at me like I had three heads. And they were like, yeah, the county commissioner doesn't add up to a lot around here. You want to talk to the individual city councils. We have it's more referred to as home rule here. And I think that's a lot what adds into it. You know, that kind of home rule, different set of interests for each town, which again, why is it so important for organizations like mine and y'all's to spend that time talking with elected officials and say, hey, here's the benefit of a lot of this stuff. You know, I know it's kind of scary and different, but look at how we can be helping each other and helping everyone else around it, make your city, your town more desirable for people to move because you have more options, all that kind of stuff. And again, I think East Hampton is a really nice example of an area that's done that. Mayor Nicole LaChapelle is absolutely fabulous. She's been a big partner of the Realtor Association and is somebody that has reap the benefits of looking at that very pro-growth, a lot of mixed use opportunities. And now I kind of rambled. What was the second part of the question? I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, now there's another related question. The second-time home buyers,
Yes,
and then
okay.
on a related thing, single-family homes being used or purchased for vacation homes or Airbnb type rentals, particularly in this COVID time we're in.
Okay, so with second time home buyers kind of snapping up stuff in the market, basically for first time home buyers, oh gosh, I haven't gotten anything very specific about that. That would be very anecdotal. There's no way of really tracking that besides somebody just happens to kind of keep a tally in their notebook, I guess. I think more than anything is that first time and or second time, there's this many homes that are available and there's this many people that are looking for it no matter what. So whether you're first time, second time, anytime, it is becoming more that it's just difficult in general. There's a clamor for everything basically. And where you fall into it is those people that would be in a lot of cases, second time or third time home buyers aren't leaving, and they're not leaving because there's no place to go, which makes it difficult. So it's again, that crystal ball issue that we're kind of getting into at some point. And as far as the Airbnbs and, or, use that broadly, we call them STR, short-term rental. That is something that we're looking at with a lot of municipalities as well. Springfield in particular, we were talking to them, dealing with some of their ordinance that they were putting in, as well as up in Greenfield. Agawam has been looking at it a little bit. And it is one of those things where, yes, we are seeing it become more and more prevalent, that people are starting to look for things that they can do with their home in the areas. I know one of the big issues that a lot of towns and cities have with the Airbnb, the short-term rental style, is at the end of the day, whether or not the building is going to be owner occupied at all times. So that's always an interesting discussion, and the regulations that go into that. And, the Realtor Association stance with that has always been, let's regulate it as much as necessary. That's important. We don't want this to become something that turns people away from an area. However, we don't want to keep the good actors out of being able to do something. So, like, for example, let's use owner occupied as an example. If, random city or town they're putting in an ordinance, and owner occupied is like, we must have owner occupied all times. You can't basically go to Maine for the summer and then have your home act as a short-term rental. Like, example is somebody who's been to Savannah, and the person, they didn't live there, they just had their home as a short-term rental. That I've used, I'm sure we all have used in various times. Our stance in something like that would be, let's regulate it. Let's regulate it like crazy to make it so stringent that there is no way this is going to become a party house and things like that. Because, hey, if you're a bad actor, you got to go. You're going to be fined. You're going to be regulated like crazy. But for those people that are good actors that want to have this availability for their home, we kind of see that as another option. And it's sort of that falls into that general property rights, as long as you're obeying the rules. We want people to not do something just for the sake of doing it, but we want them to be able to be beneficial to themselves as property owners. But we also want people to benefit their area. That's kind of the whole point, is making the whole Pioneer Valley even more attractive for people to be, and to have something like short-term rentals where you can come and you can experience the beautiful fall colors. I mean, as someone who moved from literally the land of the pine, that's what the song says, coming up here for a short-term rental and seeing the fall colors, if anything, if that doesn't make you want to move up here and find a place to live, I don't know what does. So it's always an interesting process.
I think at this point, we have a couple more really interesting questions, but I think we'll do those at the end, but maybe we'll move on over to Isabel just to make sure, keep an eye on time.
Sure, thank you. Thanks, Brendan. All right, so going to transition into kind of what resources are available for first-time homebuyers, and just like to share a little bit about the One Mortgage program. And so, doing my double screens here. Okay. So you may be aware, but the One Mortgage program is an affordable mortgage option designed to help income eligible first-time homebuyers purchase their first home. And this can be used anywhere in the state of Massachusetts. I think often there's a lot of focus on Eastern Massachusetts, but this program can be used in any city or town in Massachusetts. And it was started as a result of a Federal Reserve study, which found a pattern of racial bias in mortgage lending in Massachusetts. And so we're actually coming into our 30th year of the program. So it was formed in 1991 by MHP, the Massachusetts Affordable Housing Alliance, and then the Massachusetts Banker Association and the City of Boston. And it was known as the Soft Second Loan Program. And then in 2014, 2015, it transitioned to the One Mortgage program. And so both programs have helped over 22,000 households purchase their first home. It's been used in 306 of the 351 communities. The median household income of a buyer is $53,000, and then program-wide, we've served about half of households of color, but over the last few years, it's been increasing. And so One Mortgage borrowers on average save a little over $300 a month over a comparable FHA loan, and so this results in almost $4,000 savings a year. We do have our first poll question, and see if we can get that out there. Let me see.
Pulling it up right now, although.
Okay, great.
Could you give it a try? It's saying I'm logged out, which doesn't.
Oh, sure. So it's a true or false question. Could somebody with an annual income of $35,000, were they able to purchase a condo for $181,000 in Westfield, Massachusetts? So wondering if this is, oops, true or false.
If folks want to unmute yourself, go right ahead. Answer.
Let's see. So I'll give you all a few more seconds to answer. And so it looks, most of you had answered false, but this is actually true. So you can have make as little as $35,000 a year, and this person was able to purchase a condo in Westfield, Massachusetts. And some other kind of points around that, someone was able to purchase a 2-family property in Greenfield, and they made $29,000 a year. So thinking like what that monthly mortgage payment is combined with the rental income, this is really an opportunity for households to build wealth through homeownership. So I just want to go into some key features of what makes the One Mortgage program the most affordable mortgage program in Massachusetts. We have 46 participating lenders that offer this throughout the state. Out in Western Mass, our top lenders are Freedom Credit Union, Berkshire Bank, Citizens, People's United. We're always welcoming on new lenders, and there's definitely a strong buy local, support local movement, especially out in Western Mass. So we always love to sign on credit unions and small banks, but all of our lenders offer a discounted interest rate. And we've been hearing every day that interest rates are at all-time lows right now, but a One Mortgage lender will offer an even further discounted interest rate. So this week it's around 2.6 for a 30-year mortgage. Buyers can put as little as 3% down if they're buying a condo, a 1 or a 2 family property, and they can put as little as 5% down for a 3 family. And the most unique feature combined with that is that you don't have to pay for private mortgage insurance. So usually if you put less than 20% down, you have to pay the additional monthly fee to insure your lender, but we don't put that cost onto borrowers. So they save hundreds of dollars a month and their payment goes to paying down their mortgage. Depending on income, borrowers may also qualify for an additional monthly subsidy, which is used during their first 7 years of homeownership, and it helps ease people into making their full mortgage payments. So this is a program for first-time homebuyers. It must be used, buyers must fall within our program income limits where the property is located. So this varies by city and town, and also household size. I think there's a few people from Mass Housing here. They have a few programs that they just look at the applicant's income, whereas we look at the total household size. And then we do have asset limits, and then they must again meet the credit and underwriting requirements of a participating lender. And kind of going off the conversation around buying up properties and using it as an Airbnb with the one mortgage or as a short-term rental. The one mortgage, borrowers are required to live in their property for the life of the loan. So again, this is a program for first-time home buyers. So it's defined as you have not owned a home in the last 3 years. We do have exceptions to that. So if you are a displaced homemaker or a single parent, or if you have owned a houseboat or a motorhome in the past, those would exempt you from the first-time home buyer status.
Isabel, we've had one quick question that came in. Could a down payment assistance program or deferred second mortgage for down payment assistance be paired with one mortgage?
Yeah, that is a great question. Yes. So you can use down payment assistance programs with the one mortgage. With the 3% down, 1.5% of that has to be in the borrower's own seasoned fund. And then the other 1.5% could be from a municipal down payment assistance program. And so kind of bringing it back to the beginning, there are a few cities and towns in Western Massachusetts that offer down payment, and nonprofit, I know like Wayfinders manages it for Springfield, and then Valley CDC, I believe there's one in East Hampton, Northampton, and then they recently have been working with the Amherst Community Land Trust on a buy down program. And the town of Leverett, they also have a buy down that can be used with the one mortgage in addition to down payment assistance program. That is a great question. Sorry, I can't find the chat right now, but please let me know if any other questions come up. So for, again, just on our household income limits, it's the total households, anyone over the age of 18 that will be living in the property. And again, that's depends on the city and town and the household size that you're looking to buy in. I'm gonna try and send that link out there. So you can search by city and town to see what our program income limits are. And then we do also have asset limits. So the household's total liquid assets cannot exceed $75,000. And so those are considered checkings and savings, any stocks and bonds, or gifted money. And so that's also including a gift of equity. So if, sometimes you hear of a family friend or somebody knows somebody that's selling them a home, that difference in the appraised value and the sale price would count towards as a gift of equity. So in 2018, MHP, after a few years of looking at program impact and who's being served, we lowered our credit score requirements. So if you're looking to buy a single family or a condo, you have to have at least a 640. And then if you're looking to buy a 2 or 3 family, you have to have at least a 660. And these were lowered in 2018, just we found that it's excluding households of color. And so since implementing this change, we've, I think, within these new credit brackets, like 100% that are between a 660 and a 680 for the multifamily, households of color were able to purchase a multifamily property with these new credit score limits.
Isabel,
Oops.
quick question coming in.
Yes.
One is there an area median income limit that you cap at?
Oh, sure. Yeah, a great question. So we go up to 100% of the area median income, and I think I sent our income limits, and so we update those every April for the upcoming year. And so again, it does vary by city or town that you're looking to buy in.
Then we had another question from Megan. Do gifts of equity come into play when an affordable housing developer builds and sells a house to a first-time home buyer at a below market price?
That's a great question. So if it's identified as a deed restricted property, that difference, it wouldn't count as a gift of equity. But if it's not deed restricted and they are selling just at a lower price than the appraised value, that difference would count towards the $75,000 asset limit.
And then actually, I had a quick question. I know that one mortgage does not require a deed restriction, and that distinguishes it from some other programs. But it can be used for restricted properties, right? Like those in the local initiative, local action units and such. Could you just talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So, could you say your question again? I'm sorry. Or it can be used for deed restricted properties. And your question is?
It can, but it doesn't have to be a deed restricted property.
Oh, correct. Yes, it does not. Yep. So it can, you can use the one mortgage with a condo, a single, a 2 or 3 family. And it doesn't have to be an affordable unit. It can be a market rate.
Great.
Great.
I don't know if we have any other. Oh, you're probably not done yet. Keep going.
No, so I think the credit scores was the last piece. I think I got my slides mixed up. I just want to highlight some online resources that just to direct people to. So we have a list of all the nonprofit agencies that offer first-time homebuyer classes. Taking a first-time homebuyer course is a requirement of our program, but just always encourage anybody that's interested in purchasing a home to take this course. You learn a lot of really great just about different resources and down payment assistance programs, and can get connected with realtors and home inspectors. We have our list of partner lenders. Also on our website, we have a calculator where you can kind of estimate what your monthly payment would be or the maximum purchase price that you may be qualified for. And then again, highlighting the down payment resources available throughout the state. And then also our statewide My Mass Mortgage website. It's in a little bit of a revamp process, but you can kind of compare the one mortgage program along with Mass Housing. They have quite a few first-time homebuyer programs available. And so you can kind of compare what the difference in those programs are and just help identify, like, do you want to do 0% down? Are you looking for the lowest monthly payment? Anything around that. So there are a lot of really great resources throughout the state, and I think we are pretty fortunate to have 2 state housing finance agencies that offer programs and mortgage products for first-time home buyers. So that's it for me. I welcome any questions or just any thoughts around the one mortgage or any other first-time homebuyer programs.
Yep, we would welcome questions from people. In the meantime, I do want to swing back to some earlier questions that we got. One was, Brendan, you had mentioned, you know, the Realtor Association support for accessory dwelling units. And have you actually been seeing municipalities go forward with that?
Yeah, specifically one that has done it just recently is Greenfield. Greenfield recently in the springtime passed the ability to have ADUs by right. Essentially, they didn't have to go through a special permitting process. So yeah, you're definitely seeing it start to happen. There's a meeting, I think next week with Agawam, and they're in the process of doing basically the same thing as well. So yeah, there's a lot of movement on it, which is a good thing. You know, you got to find new ways to house people.
Yeah, and then the other question that came in that I think is super interesting is, we have learned in the first session of this series about efforts in municipalities to, I always get this wrong, down zone, up zone, basically reduce lot sizes back to what they might have been in the 70s. One, because so many properties are currently non-conforming because those were changed, but also just as a sort of good housekeeping way to do things to reduce sprawl. And the question is, do you have any sense, you know, one of the big pushbacks on this is that this will reduce my property values if lots get smaller around me. Do you have a sense that it actually does? I mean, are people looking for the big hunk of land, or is a home on a half an acre or a home on 1 acre, you know, what is the difference?
Yeah, so we looked at this actually at my old association in North Carolina, because there was a lot of that density question and, you know, issue of people that wanted their area to specifically be, you had to have 2 acres on the plot of land to build the house. And from what we were looking at there in that area specifically, it did not have a negative impact on the property values. You know, if anything, it allows property values to go up. Is kind of dependent upon the house more so than anything to some degree, but then also it allows for property values to continue to be worthwhile and for, you know, eventually go up, right? People are going to be moving to an area. If there's more space for someone to be in an area, and you know, it becomes a more desirable place to be, then the property values are going to, you know, generally go up because of that. Now, I have not looked at that specifically here in Massachusetts or with a specific municipality, but I would be willing to bet that it was probably very, very similar. Now, that density issue does come out a lot because people are worried about things like congestion and things like that. But I mean, at some point you have to kind of look at what is our level of congestion compared to, you know, rural Western Massachusetts versus the sprawl of something like Boston, things like that. And, you know, it also gets into some other areas where it's not just the lot size, but then you get into building height. You know, there's other areas that say we don't want any high-rise type things. We do not want any buildings above a certain height, which takes away a whole other side of housing for people, which makes it difficult as well. So, you know, there's that density issue it's tricky very quickly.
This is the best group for questions we've had yet. There's some amazing questions coming in. Megan McDonough wrote another useful question, I think. Can the ADU and single family be turned into condos to create home ownership opportunities that can be used for programs like the One Mortgage? So this would be for Isabel.
Sure, that's a great question. I'd say yes, it can. We do follow Fannie Mae guidelines around lending. And so the lender will ask, it has to have at least 50% or there's a certain percent of owner occupancy with kind of creating a condo unit and opportunities. And so it just has to meet those Fannie Mae guidelines. but it's
Great.
definitely an opportunity. And then I can see the other question for foreclosure rates,
Yeah.
especially with lowering the credit score. Again, a great question. So we have historically very, very low delinquency and foreclosure rates compared to conventional and especially FHA loans. They have a very high rate of delinquency. And so all of our one mortgage borrowers, throughout the life of their loan, they have access to free counseling. And so if a lender reports that a loan is starting to become delinquent, we work with, we call them home safe counselors, post-purchase counselors, that connect with the borrower and just kind of work out and to get people back on track and making their payments. But our foreclosure rates and delinquency rates are very low.
So maybe that's about one mortgage. I'm curious if, Brendan, you have a sense of over all purchases by first-time home buyers, if you have a sense of delinquency.
Yeah, our kind of lending partners, at least for this area, have never expressed anything like that. I mean, it's all born out of, you know, our 2008 crisis, that where there was just such a inability to set people up with loans that they were just not capable of doing. And there's so many factors now that stop that from actually happening. So everything that I've gotten is that, you know, the delinquency rates are low, especially for first-time home buyers, which is good.
Great. I'm not seeing any more questions. I don't know if you guys have final words or if there are more questions. I think that we may be all set with that. So I don't know if we want to, you guys have been absolutely terrific and the questions were great. Best audience ever. I don't know, Katie, if you just want to wrap at this point and close out, or.
Sure, yeah, we can wrap it up now, seeing no other questions. So again, a big thank you to Isabel and Brendan for joining us. Great presentation and really appreciate the audience participation. As a reminder, this is recorded, so we'll be posting it on the Housing Toolbox website if you ever want to refer to it later. We will also share the slides when we follow up later on today. A final note, I just wanted to let everyone know that next week in our Western Mass Housing Conference series, we'll be joined by Andrew Winter at Twin Pines Housing, and they're located in between Vermont, New Hampshire area, and they'll be talking about supportive housing for chronically homeless population and how they got their project built there. So please join us. That'll be on the 15th next week, and you can go to mhp.net/communities events and you can register right there. So thank you so much for your participation, and I hope to see you next week. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.